It's Downtown Air War over Hanoi by GMT Games. This is an older GMT title, 2000 and something, 4 maybe, 3, 4. Quite hard to get hold of now, unfortunately. Well regarded, but although I did read, I think, a thread a while back suggesting that there might be a reprint at some point. Its reputation certainly warrants it. So I'm hoping to have some fun with this. I seem to be learning new games all the time. I'm going to go back to Next War Korea at some point, and I've just got Next War Taiwan as well, so the Next War series will get some play, I hope, but I have other stuff as well, loads of other stuff. So this is about this is a sort of operational game about air warfare over Hanoi being there in the centre of the map. The sort of flash orange yellow stars that you can see, that is those are concentrations of AAA anti-aircraft artillery. This game is you could say it's heavy on setup, but the reality, I think it would be fairer to say that you start playing long before the counters hit the board. So that would be another way to say a similar sort of thing. I don't really regard what's going on in this game as setup. It's more involved than setup in that. So the North Vietnamese player, DRV player, gets to assign all kinds of surface-to-air missile sites. You can see them down there, and the hex is listed down there, which I've already started doing. And upgrading, it gets points to upgrade AAA, gets a certain number of fire cans, which is anti-aircraft artillery, sort of radar fire control for existing and new AAA that has been purchased. Has to purchase all that stuff, work out what of it is going to start revealed and set up on map, and what's going to be hidden. Sort of simultaneously, the American player rolls on a chart for what the target is going to be and what forces, roughly speaking, he's going to get to attack that target with. So you can see up here, this is a US Air Force raid on the 22nd of November 1996. The target is 1227, which, if we come over here to the map, 1227 is in there with the black diamond in it, that hex there, some way to the north of Hanoi. You can see Hanoi to the south, this is the north, this over here would be the east, and this coming this way would be the west. So you've got an attack into that area there. I could probably tell you exactly what it was if I went rummaging around in the rules, but that wasn't the point. The point was to sort of catalogue the setup or the initial phases of this game before anything even starts rolling on the table. So what I've done so far is assign all the SAM sites, the AA and the Firecan radar for the DRV. I've rolled the target for the then I've rolled the target for the US and started working out what their strike package is. So they've got jamming from an EB66C, E66C, and then they've got some, I think that's going to be combat air patrol from some Phantoms, some F-105s doing Iron Hands, so that's sort of anti-aircraft suppression. Then you've got some more Phantoms flying some more cap, F-105s on the main strike force, as well as this scenario gives, this particular version of the scenario, it gives another flight of Phantoms on a strike cap mission there, you can see there, which means that once they drop their ordnance they can then fly cap, combat air patrol, and then you've got a recon flight at the end. And I've marked the turns that they're going to come on, so we'll get some jamming come on in the pre-raid, and then a couple of turns later we'll get our cap come on. A couple of turns later we'll get our Iron Hand anti-SAM mission come on, more cap come on, and then the main strike force come on 7, and then the recon come on 6 turns later. That's what we're looking at. I might put the recon on turn 15 actually, or something that might be considerably later. Anyway, so I've sorted all that out, and now what I've got to do is set up the visible DRV anti-aircraft defences. Having done that, I will then take a map and plot the American bombing raids sort of route to the target. So they need to plot a set of waypoints to get them from one of the entry points that they're allowed to use to the target, which you can see is, I've put a big black T on it there. And that will be the next step once I've set the DRV up. So I'm going to just keep rolling forward with that, and get some counters on the map, have a look at it, and get the Americans some sort of plan. After which, the Vietnamese player, I think we roll some sort of intelligence then. Yes, we make a roll to see how much forewarning the DRV have about the incoming raid, and then from that they get to buy and place any air assets that they're going to have to try and defend with. So that's the next few steps that I've got. So here we are setting up downtown, air war over Hanoi, and I've put on the map now the defences that the American planners can see around Hanoi. So you can see surface-to-air missile sites, and at the moment they're all switched off. I can make a decision as to which ones want to start switched on as the game begins. But right now I've just put them down with them switched off. A sort of perimeter of surface-to-air missile sites, and 2 light flak have appeared there as well that the DRV are obliged to reveal. So if I put the target on here now, I'll just use a red dice to illustrate where the target is going. So the target is there. That's where the Air Force have got to try and hit. That's not a bad location for them, to be quite honest, because some of them were right on the edge of Hanoi, and they would have been subject to a lot of this heavy flak and medium flak that's all around the city. But on the outskirts up here, I mean, the DRV did put some additional light flak down to defend this particular location, but it's not exactly surrounded by defences as a lot of the targets around Hanoi. So they have an outlying target to attack, which should make things slightly easier for them. The planners now can work out a route in. Their entry points are for the Air Force are these red arrows, and they could also use the blue arrows that the Navy have up over the Gulf of Tonkin up here, 7 and 8. But I think you can see that the likely route in is not taking these routes, which would take you across Hanoi. The likely routes are starting down here somewhere, using one of these, and just flying east, hitting the target and getting the hell out of dodge back west again. That looks like the likely plan. There's not going to be too much finesse about this, I don't think, given the location that we've got and the fact that we want to avoid all those air defences. Coming in here, straight in and straight out again, minimising our exposure, looks like the best plan that we've got. So I'm now going to plot that route in on behalf of the Americans on their mini map here, and once I've done that, I can then start working out what the DRV have in terms of aircraft defences. So, still enjoying the planning and plotting that goes into downtown air war over Hanoi. Having got the DRV, Republic of Vietnam's ground to air defences on the board, we now get to plot the American flight path for their bombing raid, and you can see it here. They've chosen entry point 1, flying east to this ridge line, running the gauntlet of a SAM site just in here at VinhIen, turning back east to overfly the target and hopefully hit it there, then turning north and north again to get away from Hanoi, north of Hanoi, hitting the map edge here, and heading back west to exit the map down there. That will involve overflying some flak at Yen Bai, but and possibly no, they'll bypass the steel foundry over here, so they should avoid that at Tai Nguyen. So that's the American plan. If I show you on the map, entry point 1 down here, flying up to this thud ridge, along the ridge line to this SAM site, eastwards up over the target, then north and a bit of a dogleg round past the steel foundry and back down south, west, out over this Yen Bai, and off the map somewhere down over here. That's the flight plan. Now I need to roll weather and then make a roll to see how forewarned the North Vietnam is about this incoming raid and set up their air defences. Continuing to build up towards the start of downtown air war over Hanoi. We rolled the weather, which produced the result was none. There is no weather. Excellent. Then we rolled the alert state of the DRV, the Vietnamese forces, and let's see if I can find it. It was something like what's it called? Average warning. Here we go. Average warning. So that chart told us that that the Vietnamese player knows which entry arrow is being used to enter the map. They know how many flights within 2 are coming on the board, and they know they're allowed to set up 2 flights in the air. Now in this situation, well, in every game, the North Vietnamese player gets a certain number of points to spend on MiGs, and the scenario will tell you what types of MiGs are available, and can then trade off can then spend victory points to get more points to spend on fighters. So probably unwisely, the North Vietnamese player has spent 2 extra victory points to get a little bit more air power on the board. So they have 5 flight markers on the board, only 2 of which are real, but there it is. So there's some up there on the deck. That's the altitude marker deck. They've set up some in the air down here, and I think they have to set up on these blue circles here. Those are sort of rally points, or you know, there's some sort of orbit point. So they've set some up there and some up on their other orbit point up there, and then they have some ready and unready MiGs in airfields here. You've got some ready MiGs there, some ready MiGs there, and some unready MiGs down here. So the Americans are now almost ready to set up their forces, so I'm going to have to go through, pull all the counters out, find ones with the correct aircraft type and their call signs, and note all those down on their sheet, which is going to be a logistical task of not hard, but you know, it's just not a fun little administrative task to do. But anyway, I'll put the American force together, and then we'll be pretty much ready to start, as far as I can tell. So now I've got the sort of markers out for the American flights here. They're just when you're on, well, these would be detected, but until someone's made a sort of visual contact and actually identified your plane type, you use these just numbered markers, which that would show that you're undetected, the question mark, and then that's the detected sign. And then once you've actually been identified as the plane type, then you'd use a plane with the call sign. So then if you were undetected, you would be Mirko with the question mark, and Mirko flipped like that. So I think we're pretty close to being able to go. I've done the early warning phase. The Vietnamese have set up their planes. Now the US deploy anything coming in on turn 1, which is just Mirko here, or 100 on turn 1, and yeah, then we'll be flying. And really, there's not going to be a great deal happening on these initial turns, because it's just sort of force entry and this standoff jamming of Mirko and Wandes is going to be keeping its distance and just trying to use electronic warfare to target SAM sites from pretty much the edge of the map. So these first few turns should be pretty quick. 5 turns in here then at downtown, our war over Hanoi in this scenario, which is it's called D4, the Wheel of Hurt or something like that. It's D4 for sure, I'm not sure the precise scenario name. We just done the movement phase of the 5th turn. What have I got to do? Fuel, nothing happens. SAM location, no. Track phase, just make a quick roll to see whether any of the detected flights lose their tracking. Let's do that. Let's throw some dice. There's an 8 there, and then we come across to a table here, and we check this track table here. Now the Americans were on column E, which is bad, but they've just moved to F because of a random event. And 8 has a spade symbol in brackets, which means that nothing that they've got on the board is going to lose its detection. So essentially what you can see here is the American forces as they're entering the board, and the sort of mission unfolding, really. So you've got the electronic warfare flights here, 100 and 101, putting out some sort of jamming signal towards the SAM sites up there. Pretty generic stuff. You've got a combat air patrol being flown here, which is headed out towards an unknown enemy somewhere over there, which they're a little bit interested in. And there's some more heading down here. So this American cap is keeping watch on the jamming aircraft at the moment. And then you've got some, and these are an iron hand mission, so a suppression of enemy air defences, and they'll be looking at these, especially at these two SAMs here, because their bomber flight path comes along this ridge line right into this SAM. So they'll be looking to try and work out what these what around here needs taking care of, and then take care of it, and obviously up towards the actual target as well, which is there. And there'll be some combat air patrol that comes on with the main strike force in a second, which will probably burn on ahead a little bit of the bombers and keep these guys covered as well. So that's roughly what we've got at the moment, and it's quite nice. This is quite. I'm sure things will pick up, but it has quite a slow pace at the start of this game. You're just sort of moving the mission onto the board and slowly kind of setting up what you're intending to do. I'm just trying to get these standoff jammers just a little bit closer in. Their jamming becomes more effective if they can get closer to the radar that they're trying to jam, the SAM sites that they're trying to jam. But obviously there's a risk in that there's hidden SAM sites somewhere. I mean, there could be hidden SAM sites down in here and all kinds of places. So it's a question of how big a risk they want to take, and how close they dare get to Hanoi. I'm thinking that they'll probably call it a day somewhere around this 25, 43, 23, 43 running across there. And if they could be flying backwards and forwards in this area, projecting jamming up there, then they'll probably accept that. But at the same time, they need some protection if there's going to be enemy flights closing in on them, so enemy fighters. So yeah, that's the rough plan for these guys. And then obviously the main bombing flight is following a route up here towards this ridge line and in over there and east. There it is. End of turn 7, moving into turn 8 here at Downtown War over Hanoi. Something of a game of cat and mouse then going on between this these two flights of American Combat Air Patrol and this flight of Vietnamese, unknown Vietnamese. The Americans made a long-range attempt to pick it up on the radar of the F4s, didn't make it, and this flight then made a turn into the rough terrain, staying on the deck to make it as hard as possible for them to get picked up by any sort of detection, and they're out of the nose cone radius of certainly the front certainly the front F4, the rear and the rear one. So yeah, they're trying to make it as difficult as possible. And there's another flight closing in here. One's taken off there. One dropping down the board edge, I think. Oh, that's way up over there. One in here that's taken off from Hanoi. So there's now 5 potential threats in the air. And the first radar SAM site just blinked on as well here, so, to the west of Hanoi as well, just to try and create the incoming American flights some problems as well. They're now planning now to turn, as you can see, these have turned north, and they're now planning to run north with their radar jamming running. This flight will follow, and you've got some more cap there which will be escorting the strike team in, and this is the Iron Hand group that are going to have to head up in this sort of direction and start trying to take care of some of these sites. So that's the general situation as it's unfolding. Still no real shots in anger or anything like that. Lots of cat and mouse and positioning as the mission slowly unfolds. I'm sure it'll hot up once we get a little bit closer to Hanoi.